Hey, 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 and welcome back to another episode of LOL Library Unlocked. I'm your host, Lauren Mobley. You already know library life can be full of ups and downs, but you can always come kick it with me and my guests to laugh and learn. All things library, all the time, or at least until I change my mind. Here, I can guarantee you we'll mix things up and lock it down. Oh my gosh, do I have a treat for you. Author of the Yasmin series, Must Love Pet series, Maria Khan series, Yusuf Azim is Not a Hero, Saving Sunshine, and her newest release, The Strongest Heart, just to name a few. Saadia Faruqi. Enjoy this chat about graphic novels, her work, representation, and the magic of author visits. It's a good one. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with Saadia. Hi!
Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just so happy that you are on with me today. I was telling you before we started, but I'll tell our listeners too, because I think it's, kind of funny that you reached out to me about being on the podcast, and I had actually stopped doing it, and I was like, you know what? I really like Saadia Faruqi. If she asks me, I'm going to start it back. So I've done all these podcasts leading up to this episode with you.
I'm honored. I'm honored, and I hope that you can continue because there's a lot of conversations you can have with a lot of really cool people, and I think that it will be worth it to your listeners if you continue.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's like therapeutic, and I get a little bit of time away, like close the office, and like, all right, nobody bother me. I'm recording.
Yeah, I get that.
But Sadia, tell our listeners who don't know you a little bit about yourself. Of course, I know
Well,
you.
I'm a children's author. I write for kids all the way from little kids like 4 or 5 year olds with my early reader series, which is the Yasmin series that is kind of more well known. I think that's what I'm known mostly for. But also for older kids, my middle grade novels, graphic novels, and I live in Houston, Texas, which is kind of weird weather-wise because sometimes there's hurricanes and sometimes it's hot, but it hardly ever gets cold. So I guess I'm happy about that. I'm an immigrant, so I moved to the U.S. from Pakistan, where I was born, and I came here as an adult. So I have lived kind of almost half of my life, or a little bit more than half now, in the U.S. and raising kids here. So I see a lot of things that kids who are first generation, who have parents that are from quote unquote somewhere else, have a lot of issues and struggles that are very unique to them, and so I write about that a lot in my books as well, which I feel like that's my forte. That's what I can bring to the table as far as books is concerned, but also fun books and cool books and um, entertainment as well.
Saving Sunshine is your first graphic novel.
Yes, yes. Saving Sunshine was my first graphic novel.
That
It
was
came
such a
out.
cute story.
Thank you. It was came out in 2023. It got a bunch of awards. It was a finalist for the Eisner Award, which was really huge. Which, of course, was not anything to do with me. It was the illustrator whose art was so fantastic. The art, the Saving Sunshine's art got a lot of awards, like just like art related awards, which I'm super
You
proud.
inspired it, though. You inspired it. Don't be so humble.
Well, we should give credit where credit is due, and I feel like a lot of times authors don't give credit or forget to mention that here's a
Mhm.
book with a bunch of illustrations, and I did not do those illustrations. So the person who does needs to also be kind of remembered and praised.
This is true. Did it take you a long time, like, to put together the graphic novel? Because I don't know, like, do you have to work in conjunction with the illustrator, or do you kind of like write the whole story? You guys go back and forth. Like, what does that process look like?
No, you don't work in conjunction. If you are not the illustrator, also, there are some people who write and illustrate themselves,
Mm.
which I am not. I'm really terrible at art, so that was not a that was not a thing for me, possibility for me, unfortunately. So if you're just the author, then you write a script. It's basically a script with kind of like a script for a play, where it's just dialogues and you have some notes for the artist. Like this is what's going on, or describing the scene in a little in like a little paragraph or a few lines, and
Mhm.
then they take it from there once you're done with your draft and your revisions, and it's the perfect script, and then they take it and they kind of work on sketches. And in any book, whether it's a graphic novel or a picture book or an early reader, any book with pictures, you're never really working in conjunction with another person who's the illustrator. Is kind of like step one and then step two. And they do ask you, for what did you mean by this? Or, it mentions that there's a dog. What kind of dog did it matter to you?
Mm,
Or, things like that. And just like we have a revision process in any kind of written form, the art people also have their revision process where they'll send sketches, and I have the opportunity um, to give my feedback. And I try very hard not to give very much feedback because that's not my job, and they know better than me about what fits where. But just in trying to be accurate in terms of cultural accuracy, religious accuracy, making sure like skin tones and things like that, all of those are really important, which I if it's my story, then I kind of know that a little bit better. But otherwise, yeah, you just kind of hope for the best. And I don't think anyone's ever not happy with the result, hopefully.
yeah. I am so in August of, your work, and doing a graphic novel is amazing because like right now kids are so crazy for
Yeah.
graphic novels. Like those are my books that really move, whether in my middle school and in my high school. And so like today I actually had a kid come and he's wanted to check out a book, but he said his teacher told him no books with pictures. And
No, 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 no,
I'm like, I'll deal with your teacher. You get what you want. I'll talk to your teacher. Don't. Mm-mm. And then like, it just really upsets me when that happens because the visual literacy is so important, and
it is. It
all
is.
these dynamic things are happening in the page, like how you mentioned the author wants to clarify what type of dog it is. Like that's the symbolism. Like it's important, and for the reader to see that and to read the words and read the pictures all as layers and depth to the story. So I don't know how we can like change the narrative around graphic novels, but
I
um,
mean, the way I do it is when I talk to librarians and teachers and educators, even parents, because parents often are like, "Why are you reading this book? Read
mhm,
this other book that's a full length novel." Which I mean, probably as a parent when my kids were younger, I maybe did that too because I wasn't in the space and I did not have much awareness. So it's just about raising awareness. For example, about how long it takes to make a graphic novel. So of all the books that I've written, and in case anyone's wondering, right now I have currently 54 books published, and with the new one that's coming out in a few days, it'll be 55. And
wow.
yeah, um, my graphic novel took the longest time to be created. It took 3.5 years. And it was not me doing anything in those 3.5 years. I was done with the script in a few weeks. Maybe the revision
Mm,
process took a few more months. But
mm,
the artist takes so long because that is intensive work of months and months and months and years to come to get this product ready. And oftentimes these illustrators, they get back pain, they get hand pain, they have to have surgeries if they've been doing a lot of graphic novels. um, and then when a reader picks them up, they're kind of, whoosh, 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 going through them, turning the pages, and in 30 minutes, they're done reading. And
wow.
that is, I think, to me, that's something that needs to be kind of explained to readers and also to people who are saying, well, it's not worth it to read a graphic novel or buy a graphic novel because they're pretty expensive, also because it takes so much
Mm,
time and effort. That there is so much nuance and so much symbolism, like you said, but also every panel and every illustration, every picture has had a bunch of decisions behind it. Why do we portray it this way? The color schemes, the whether you see a person, a character from a close up of his face versus far away versus turned to the side. All of these are decisions that are made by the artist and the art editor. It's so thought out, and there's reasonings behind it. And every time you read a graphic novel again, you will find something that you missed the first time, and so there's a lot that you can get out of it. So yeah, I mean, read graphic novels. They're fun, but also like kind of um sit and think about what is in this art. Why is it like
mm.
this? Why these colors versus those colors versus the palette versus. just so many decisions.
Right. Why make it shaped like this? The transitions, right? Like there's so many layers that people don't think about. So thanks for bringing that up. But I do want to talk about your new book,
Yeah.
The Strongest Heart. I was able to read a little bit of it. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm so excited for our listeners to get a hold of it. So tell us about this story because I enjoyed Mo's character.
Yeah, I mean, he is interesting. Mo is probably the most like me of all my characters.
Really?
Yeah, this is basically a very, very, very personal book because it's my life in a fictional form. Not
Mm,
the story that happened. You know, the plot obviously is made up because it's fiction. It's not a memoir. But so Mo, short for Muhammad, he is a 13-year-old boy who is traveled with his father from New York City to Houston, where he's now going to live with his aunt, his father's sister, and her son, who is obviously Mo's cousin, because they are kind of adrift. Their mom, Mo's mother, has kind of left for a job overseas and isn't really interested in taking care of them for the time being, which is, you know, wouldn't be a big deal for a 13-year-old boy, except that his father is very severely mentally ill. He has schizophrenia, and so he is not only not able to take care of himself, but also has very you know, he's got anger problems, he's got addiction problems, he's got this father is just a terrible dad, which Mo calls him the monster in his heart and really thinks of him like that and doesn't want to have anything to do with him and is very angry with his mother for leaving him alone with his dad. And so they start at the start of the book. They're kind of entering into this new phase of their life, and he's starting school and he's getting to know more people. Um, and you know, I don't want to give away what happens, but a lot happens. A lot happens in his life, but also um in how he sees himself and how he sees his father. And there's a lot of perceptions that are kind of turned upside down, and just, you know, just everyday life, but with that intense background of who of what happens, of people who you know, are not perfectly able to take care of themselves or perfectly able to be the best parents that they can be, and how do kids deal with that. So it is personal because that's how I grew up. My dad was mentally ill, and it was a very tough and very um, you know, unstable life that I lived as a child, and I kind of have put a lot of myself not only in Mo the character, but also in many of the scenes, many of the memories, many of the nightmares he has. They are all things that I went through, and so it's kind of like
mm,
my trauma dump right there in this book, like in a
yeah.
fun way. I promise it's a very fun book. You will love most characters. Very edgy and gritty, and he kind of like shows off that as if he's a bad boy. He's got this persona that he's really not inside. And there are a lot of fun folk tales that are weaved into the story as well, which I think that readers will enjoy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that piece as well. All the some of the folk tales that you included.
Good.
It kind of gives representation, you know, beyond just the traditional folk tales. Some different cultural aspects that you included.
Yeah, yeah,
But no, really important story, you know, for students to read, and especially for students who are kind of dealing with issues like you mentioned, where a parent they may be going through something and how to address that. And that just kind of speaks to how important it is that all students see themselves in books, no matter what they're going through. That there's something that they'll be able to connect with. And
yeah.
so, when you sat down
Absolutely.
to write this, oh, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
I totally agree that, you know, there are so many readers who have I did for something I wrote for a blog I wrote for my publisher when this in preparation of this book I did some research on, you know, what currently is happening in at least the US, and there are so many millions and millions of kids who have a mentally ill parent. And you know, mental illness, there's so many different types and conditions, and a lot of it is not, you know, so severe that you can't live. It's just a person who maybe has anger issues or maybe isn't able to be the best mom or dad or caregiver or grandparent or relative. But for kids, that can be really difficult to navigate because they feel powerless. They don't know who to go to for help. The person who might has a mental illness might be making bad decisions for themselves or their family, and so it's kind of just this stressful time and anxiety ridden time in a child's life. So, and whatever age you are, I mean, I until the age of 22, I lived like that because that was how long I lived with my in my parents' house, and
Mhm.
um, I think that if you are not one of those people who have any any connection to somebody with mental illness, you can maybe see somebody else in a different light and understand things better. And so it's either we talk about mirrors and windows, and it's really important to pick up a book where, okay, I don't know anybody with with this illness. Why should I care? But you don't know. Maybe there's somebody in your class who goes through something like that and you didn't even realize. So it's not only important to see yourself in a book, but also maybe to see somebody else that you did not think of in a certain way.
Right, that empathy piece, right? Being able to connect with other people, despite if you have the same struggles or not.
Yeah.
So this will be your 55th.
55th.
Wow, that's a lot. 55th published book. But this is such a personal story for you. So I guess what inspired you to write this now or to put this out now, as opposed to maybe earlier in your career?
Maybe I was not as confident. I've always been very, this is not something that I talked about in the past. And it's I never thought I would really share. It was even my closest friends when I was growing up did not know that this was happening in my house. And even within our own family, people who my siblings, my mom, my relatives, we do not talk about this. There's so much like just like we'll just act like nothing happened, sadly. And I didn't either. It was just there's shame around it. There's a lot of people who are severely mentally ill, they act out in public and then you get embarrassed and you just don't want to deal with it. You just want to disassociate and not have anything to do with this person. And so I never it was not ever going to be something I wrote about. But several years ago, I think maybe this was before COVID started. I started going to a therapist and I started really talking about my own issues because I was seeing a lot of, I could see sometimes how what had happened in my childhood affected me today and affected me as a parent. I had really bad parenting examples from both my parents because of this issue. And I saw myself kind of doing the same thing without really, being aware of it with my own kids, and I realized I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be the same kind of parent that my dad was, where he would just be shouting and angry all the time, or like my mom was, where she just was just trying to keep things together and not really be emotionally available
Mm,
for us. And so I went to therapy for several years, and I really talked about those issues and investigated and analyzed how I had what was in me now because of how I had grown up. And that
mm,
really helped me change how I thought about my dad and how I stopped looking at him as this monster and saw him as a person who was sick, and it was whatever he did, even the things that he did that were really horrible were not his fault. He was sick. And I learned to be a better parent. I learned to be a better person, and I think that's one of the things I thought was, I should kind of write this down because this is something that others can um, others can maybe benefit from. But more importantly, just having just being able to say it out loud and accept it that this happened. It's okay to say that and write that and talk about that.
right. And almost like, speaking, it's like coming to terms with it and like accepting it, kind of like fleshing it out. It's like cathartic.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so with your school visits, I know you meet so many people, so many school librarians and teachers and students. Um, how do you connect with them?
I mean, it's really easy because I love meeting people, especially people who have read my books or who want to read my books. And the good thing is that when you're an author and you're invited to a school, they've already done their homework. They already are excited about you. So it's not, I hardly ever go into a school completely blind or nobody knows who I am and I'm there to convince them. It's mostly they've been talking about it, they've been reading my books. You know how it is. Teachers, librarians will get the kids excited. Hey, we have an author coming. Here are some of their books, and kind of like reading them or encouraging them to be read. So when I go into a school visit, it's always this feeling of like hospitality and being welcomed with open arms and being told that that we've read your books and we enjoy them. So it's always, there's no hardship. There's no I don't have to do anything except just be there and kind of talk and do my presentations. And but I love it. I love meeting my kids. I do that a lot. And ever since now my kids are older, they're both teenagers. And in fact, my son has gone to college, so they're able to take care of themselves for at least 2 3 days at a time, and without my, I'm not having to drive and cook and do things for my kids anymore. So for the last few years, I've been traveling a lot. I think I do significant number of school visits and library visits, and that really keeps me motivated. I mean, it helps me remember who I'm writing for and why I'm writing, and meeting those kids and having those interactions with individuals or classrooms or even teachers or parents. That really makes me, remember that, okay, I'm doing something good. I think that this is something that people want from me. So even if sometimes I want to throw my laptop out the window, I should continue.
I love having author visits. I mean, I don't think there's a school librarian who doesn't love
Yeah,
having author visits. Like this is like the creme de la creme. Like it's like showtime, like
yeah.
Super Bowl for school library. And in a high school, I had our first author visit just last week, and it was so amazing because there were some kids who typically, may not come to the media center, may not read, but they were so enamored by the experience and by the visit that they're like, you
Aw,
know, they want to get involved now. And so
good.
that's the power of author visits and making those connections. And so I'm like, if it can just reach, one student, then that's
Absolutely,
a win.
absolutely. And even if you've never read a book by a certain author, there's just something about somebody who, can come and talk about writing, can come and talk about, for example, when I do school visits, I talk a lot about, seeing yourself in a book, and why I got into writing, which was because I wanted my own kids to be able to see themselves in books. And a while ago, even 10, 15 years ago, there were no books for younger kids where there was, first generation, South Asian or brown kids, Muslim kids, kids whose parents were from somewhere else or who they were from somewhere else. Those books didn't exist. And so to be able to write those stories and show that authentic culture and way of life and traditions that might be different from everybody else's, but they still have value. So many kids, I mean, I have to tell you that whenever I visit schools where there's a kid who feels that they're different or they stand out or they're not like everybody else, they're the ones whose eyes really light up when I go talk to them, because they, for the first time, often they see somebody who's also different. It might not be the same difference, but you can tell
Mm.
that, okay, this person is from, for example, oftentimes I'll say, raise your hand if your family speaks another language at home, or raise your hand if you kind of have traditions or holidays or celebrations that are different from other people in your class. And they realize that, we can talk about this. It's okay to be different, and just having that connection with somebody is so important for kids of any age, whether they're high school or elementary school or middle school.
Mm. Do you have any, or let me say, what is one of your favorite or most memorable stories from one of your author visits?
I have a lot of stories that kind of, like I said, I do so many that it kind of runs together. But I remember, it does, because I'm like, where did I meet that kid again? I can't
Where was
remember kids anymore.
that?
Um, there was this one child, I think she might have been in second or third grade, and after the presentation, sometimes they'll come up if there's time and just say hi. And she hugged me, and this was this was actually during COVID or just after COVID. I had stopped traveling during the pandemic, but then when we started back up, we were still at that stage where we were like, we're not gonna hug, we're gonna keep a distance.
That's
You remember those days? Um, but the teacher asked, "Can she hug you?" She really wants to hug you, so I said, "Okay, fine." So if I get sick, she didn't look sick, so we were fine. And she said, "You look just like my mom." And that was just such an important thing for me because I don't know what her mom looked like, honestly. I mean, I don't know whether I look like her or not. But I think what she was identifying with was my persona, my hijab, my the way I was dressed, the way I was talking, the way that I was just like this was something that she connected, and she just gave me the longest hug, and I hugged her back, and it made me just I've always been curious what her mom looks like. It didn't matter really because I realized what she was trying to say. And yeah, there was this one time, this one girl in fifth or sixth grade, and she had, specially because of my visit, she had come to school dressed in shalwar kameez, which is a traditional clothes
Mhm.
we wear in Pakistan. The teacher told me later that she wore this especially for you. Um,
Oh.
and even I would not ever wear shalwar kameez in a school. I mean, those are clothes that are very traditional, and so people kind of like look at you, which is like, I'm like, this girl is way more confident than I am. Just something that I would wear in my with my family or with a social gathering that was everybody was from Pakistan, but she had insisted that she was going to wear this because somebody was coming to school who she shared that with. So I'm so humbled with these examples. I learn from these kids every day as well.
I love that so much. And I actually do know what Shawar Kameez is because when I read 1,000 Questions by you and you were talking about all the clothes, girl, I was Googling, like, what type of
Yeah,
outfit is this?
yeah.
Well, okay, now I can picture it in my
Oh, all of my clothes have those little, moments
mind.
where there's culture that's highlighted. I mean, I'm in the age of my life now that I don't care what people think. So I can talk about all of that and not be ashamed or embarrassed. But kids who are in middle school or high school, they often feel like those are things that set them apart. They don't want to identify with a different culture. They want to be like everyone else, which of course, I mean, that's
Hmm.
their age of doing that. And I hope that if somebody picks up my book and reads, something like that, they can feel a little bit more comfortable that, okay, if once in a while I bring some lunch to school that's, different from everybody else's lunch, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Or
But that's the importance of books too, because trying to fit in or like trying to like not be different is almost like a self preservation. Like let me just go with the group.
yeah, I get
But
it.
the
Yeah.
importance of books is students to read these and they might not be their culture, but they'll have understanding about how someone else's life is different and what those experiences like and how they can value and understand them.
And then you realize that we're actually all the same. And that is the key thing when you read about people who are different, when you read about books that are set in other countries or where the characters are from somewhere else or are different from you. You might see those little differences, but then when you read the story and you read about emotions and you read about fears and you read about worries or happy moments, you realize that it's the same. Doesn't matter what color my skin is or what language I speak or what religion I practice. It's those that humanity is the same. And I think that if anybody honestly at any age that can get that message in their head, we would all be like, so much better off if we all understood
Mm.
that.
I feel like something I've kind of started noticing more as I'm reading is that it's not even the action that necessarily connects me to the story, but it's like how the author will break down what the person is thinking, how this made them feel. And it's like so detailed, like their thought process. And I'm like, oh, I guess as I'm getting older, I'm like noticing this is very detailed that the author has to take this time to unpack how what this character said to this character and how our protagonist feels about it and what they didn't say and what that implies and like it's just so many layers to the thought process that the author conveys in the page when they're writing, aside from just the action.
That's the point of writing. That's why writing is so fun but also very challenging, because you want, as a writer, I mean, I feel like this book, The Strongest Heart, that's coming out now, is honestly, I feel my editor said it's like my best book yet, because every time you write something, you learn from it and you get better and better and better. And now the one that I'm working on now that will come out next year, my editor emailed me and said, "This is your best book," and I said, "What?" I feel like I'm just, improving, because I'm learning as I write. I'm perfecting my craft and we all do that as writers, as painters, as artists. And that's just how the creative process is, right? It's not stagnant. It's creativity is always kind of building on itself and improving.
Absolutely. Well, Sadia, you kind of took my question. Can you like tell us about your next book? Like, is it? Can we get like a little like a
Well,
like just a taste,
I
like
have a
a
lot of books.
gist?
So I usually, last year, I had about 9 or 10 books come out, and then this year also. So yes, that's how I get to this insane number of 55.
Oh my
Um,
goodness!
so I do, this year, after The Strongest Heart, I will also have the next book in the Maria Khan series, which is a chapter book series for, it's about an 8-year-old Maria who is very, very stubborn, and she loves getting her way, and then she gets into all these scrapes. A book, five of that, Maria Khan, and the Disastrous Class Project is coming out in April. And then after that, there will be, some more books for early readers, like the Yasmin books and Ali the Great, which is a spin-off of Yasmin.
Mhm.
I have another graphic novel that's coming out next year called Don't Be Scared. It's about a bunch of ghost stories, and a boy who is filming or making a documentary on a haunted house in his city, and hearing ghost stories from Pakistan from his dad, and kind of just
Oh.
getting into this really cool mindset of, supernatural. um so that's still, the artist is still working on those. So I'm hoping, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that will also be released soon.
Do you have any projects for 9 to 12th grade?
I do, but I kind of cannot. Maybe I can't talk about it. I don't even know.
Okay,
Half the
I'll
time
take yes.
they tell you you can't talk about it. I have
I'm
written my
not gonna pull
first
your leg.
YA. Well, I have written my first YA novel, but it's not out yet. We're still doing revisions, and I'm excited about it because it's a project with Marvel, so it's kind of like a tie-in to one of the superheroes, and I'm
Oh.
excited. I'm excited, but you know, sometimes we write a book and then we don't hear back, and we have to wait and wait and wait. So this is one of those books that I've written, and now I'm just waiting for it to be published.
Oh, okay. Like I don't know how this author thing works, but I just
You are
think
not in
like
control. You're really not in control of so much. You can write
mm,
something, but there are other people who are making decisions as well, the editors, the production houses, all of these people. And so, you can write something and then not hear when it's going to be published for the next 3 years, for the next 5 years, or it might be published the next day, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was coming out so soon.
uh,
You just have to,
surprise.
you know, you just write it, send it off, and then work on your next project so it doesn't stress you
Mm.
out. So, yeah.
I'm so excited for you. These are amazing projects, and of course, I'm excited about The Strongest Heart. I'm so grateful that you took this time to come speak with me this evening.
Oh, thank you for having me. I know you've got a little one at home, so I really, really appreciate,
Of course, two
your.
little ones.
Oh, I really can. Wow, wow. So yeah, so that's really amazing of you that you're taking your precious evening time out for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, like I said, I enjoy doing this, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you. Before I let you go, there's two things. One, I wanted to know, are you reading anything right now? Of course, I know you're writing, but are you reading too, or?
I only read what my teenage son, the one who's in college now, calls your smutty romance.
Oh yes,
So he
we
is
love that.
I read a lot of romance, which is not always funny, but it is romance. And I think that I just love not having to think too much about, because when I'm writing, I'm thinking so much in that one frame of mind of, writing and characters and plot and arc and all of that. So I just need something that's not as heavy. So I read a lot of romance, and yeah, yeah, that's nothing in particular that I would recommend or sticks out in my mind. It's just,
Just some good smut.
yeah, it doesn't have to be. It's all, there's all kinds of romance, and there's a lot of historical romance that I like. So it's not always, as objectionable as people would want.
Okay, all right, some layers.
You just you're not always in the mood to read the same thing. Like sometimes I want to
Hmm.
read fantasy, which is not often, but actually right now I'm listening to the audiobook of a fantasy romance. So let's see how that goes, which is not always my best, my most favorite thing to read, but
I am about to, like, I kind of started the third book in the Fourth Wing trilogy,
oh yeah.
Onyx Storm, but I put it
Yeah,
down and
you
started.
did not like it.
I'm like, because I kind of forgot what happened in books one and
Oh,
two.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like, I feel like I might need to revisit those, and I don't have time right now to
You
reread
have to
those.
read those, and that's why I prefer to wait until the series is complete before reading it. I've heard so much about it, but I'm also the kind of person who doesn't really get too attached to hyped up books, which maybe also because
Mm,
I'm an author whose books are not that hyped. So, I really encourage people, don't always go for the book that, everyone's talking about and it's on billboards everywhere. Do your research and find some book that's not as well known, because those are really
hmm.
gems. And so I like to read like that as well. I'll try to be like, okay, everyone's reading that one. Why don't I find something else to read?
Go
I
against the
have good,
grain.
I have heard good things about that series.
I think you should enjoy it. It's pretty good. And other question was, is there any, how can our listeners connect with you? Is there anything else you wanted to share before I let you go?
I have my website, which is saadiafaruqi.com. So as long as you spell my name correctly, you'll find me there. That's a lot of all the information about my books is there. Also, if you want to contact me for school visits, that's how you would do that, by reaching out through my website. But I also am very active on social media now, especially Instagram. I used to be really big on Twitter. I'm still on Twitter, but now it's X, and now it's weird. So I'm trying not to be there
Girl.
too much. But Instagram, I'm always posting things. I connect with people. If you send me a DM, I will try to respond as soon as possible. So I'm not one of those authors who you never hear from. So I'm always willing to talk and chat and answer questions, and you can reach me on there.
Yeah, you're awesome. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for doing this. And thank you for pushing me to start the podcast back up. This is why we got a season two, because of Miss Saadia, y'all.
Well, I'm. You know what? If you don't continue now with other guests, then I'll be like the person who, it will be my fault too. So don't do
No,
that.
maybe this is the grand finale. This is-
No, 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 no. I'm always happy to recommend other authors as well. So let me know if you need any help.
okay.
Having people, but you know so many authors probably. But now, thank you for doing this. Thank you for letting me talk about myself with my books and what I have coming up next. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. This is a great chat.
All right.
If you're not hip to Saadia, I hope you're on the fan club bandwagon now. She's incredible, and I'm so honored to speak with her and share this with you. Check out her newest novel, The Strongest Heart, when it releases on March 4th, and be sure to follow and connect with her online. I'll see you next time.